Hi everybody, I'm here today to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Generation X. I loved this title when I was growing up, and I'm so happy that the Epic Collections are plowing through these issues, giving us a steady one per year. I'm going to talk about the most recent release, Generation X Volume 3, The Secret of M, and then afterwards we'll come back and look at the other Generation X collections and see what we have left in the Epic Collection line. So let's go and do that now. Before we get started on looking at Volume 3, I just want to note that Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the Epic Collections had some coloring issues with the scans in several of the issues throughout those volumes. Let me show you. I actually really like the coloring in the Generation X series as it used digital coloring really effectively, I think. However, the scans in these Epic Collections really saturate a lot of the reds and wash out a lot of the light tones, so it looks like a very, very different book. The subtleties of some of the digital coloring here have completely disappeared when it gets washed out in the Epic Collection. Most notable in the soft look of the skin tones. That just doesn't look right at all. And take a look at Jubilee here. Right here, nice skin tone color, but the Epic Collection makes her look like an Asian stereotype. What the heck? I'm happy to say that Volume 3 of the Epic Collection has none of those problems. All of the issues look exactly like they were when they were first published, and it is really quite fantastic. Okay, well let's get on with the book. Here's Volume 3. Here's the front cover. Let's take a look at that spine box. And here's the back cover. Kind of wish they would have centered these guys instead of trying to cram the Hellions into one side. It just makes this double page spread look a little awkward with this kind of a gap in the middle right here where the fold would be. And the contents, there are a lot of different things in this book, including Daydreamers miniseries, X-Men Unlimited, Marvel Team Up, and my favorite Generation X Underground special, which I'll talk more about in a little bit. Scott Lobdell had been building a story since the very first issue, and it's going to come to a head with issue 25 in this issue here. But first, before we get to the 25th issue, we have to get through a few things like this annual, which actually was an adaptation of a prose novel that came out a couple years before. We get a solo Banshee story from Marvel Unlimited. And here we are, the Generation X 25th issue. It was an oversized issue. Chris Pichello had to take a couple of months off before in order to get all of the detail worked out here. I remember in the original issue that they forgot to print this little overlay of Sabretooth's head in the original issue, so it was just a blank space. So this guy was reacting to nothing. There was a correction in the next issue, but I'm glad to see that they've put it back the way it should be for this collection. After the events of issue 25, the team is split up a little bit and they have to figure out where everybody is. And one of the things is that Jubilee is captured, and this is a big tie-in to the Operation Zero Tolerance storyline. And a lot of her story is actually told in the pages of Wolverine, including the very elaborate way that she ends up escaping, which we don't get to see in the pages of Generation X here. My only complaint here is I wish they would have included those issues. Scott Lobdell leaves the book, and it's up to writer James Robinson to tie up the remaining part of the Operation Zero Tolerance story. And in this one, he actually shows the secret of M, which I'm not going to show you in this book. You're going to have to read that for yourself. But this is also the end of Chris Pichello's run on Generation X as he moves over to X-Men after this. Then after Generation X, we get this 3-issue miniseries starring Daydreamers, following this weird crew of people that all got together in the 25th issue. Man-Thing, Tananile, Franklin Richards, Howard the Duck, and Ardian Leach. And they take a romp through different kind of mystical worlds, including an Alice in Wonderland type world, a Dr. Seuss type world, and even Howard the Duck's own Duck World. And the miniseries is used as a way for Franklin to process his grief over losing his parents in the Onslaught and Heroes Reborn era. Then my favorite issue here, Generation Underground special by alternative artist Jim Mahfood. I can't tell you how much I loved this issue, seeing the kids used in a very different way. It opened my eyes up to the entire global world of comics, seeing that there was way more than just superheroes out there. And I started exploring a lot of the alternative comic scene because of this. It remains one of my favorite Marvel comics that they've ever published because they are willing to do something different, and it is super fun. I really love it. Glad that is included in this Epic collection. Volume 1 of Generation X is called Back to School, and it collects the first several issues of Generation X as well as the first part of the giant Phalanx Covenant story where a lot of these characters were introduced for the first time. Generation X made a big splash in the comic world when it came out, and that's partly because of the dynamic artwork of Chris Bachalo, who really gave this comic a signature look and was doing stuff very different from everything else that we saw from Marvel Comics at the time. The next volume, M-Plate's Revenge, keeps the story going as we learn more about the villain M-Plate, which is going to be Generation X's #1 villain. We also see the return of Chris Bachalo in this volume, and we get sidetracked a bit as the Generation X gets sucked into the whole Onslaught story. And then we have Volume 3, which I've already talked about. Now, also recently announced is Volume 4, Pride and Penance, which collects all of the stuff after Chris Bachalo and Scott Lobdell and James Robinson are done. It's the entire Larry Hama run on Generation X in one volume. And after that, I'm guessing that Generation X is going to have maybe 2 more volumes. We'll need a volume with the Jay Faerber run, and then a Counter X volume, and then it'll pretty much be done. Generation X did have a short-lived series in the Modern Era by Christina Strain, and so that could be collected into a one-and-done volume of Generation X Modern Era Epic Collections. Not sure if they're planning to do that or not, but I would welcome it. And that's my video on Generation X. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll do another one when Volume 4 comes out. If you have any questions about Generation X, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, you can check out my other social media accounts all over the internet. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.